Greetings, parish orphans and retrogrades. Today, I come to you with a show on the Rings of Power series that Amazon spent like $1 billion on, and it still sucks. And we're gonna give some commentary from a man. Well, I mean, I'm gonna give some commentary, but I like to give and I like to get some commentary also from a man who is more knowledgeable about what ought to be the events we're measuring against in the real canon of Tolkien on Middle-earth, Second Age. And he's my great friend. We became friends through Tolkien. We've been friends for many years now, and he simply knows more about this. You're looking at him, Mr. Anthony Bedoy. Anthony, thanks for joining me today on Rules for Retrogrades.
Yeah.
Elf version.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. For the one time, I guess it's been, a long time coming, talking about Tolkien with you personally on the side. And then just thinking about it recently because of the show. And I as I was watching the show, which I kind of regret saying it, but I am watching it, as a Tolkien fan, trying to do my due diligence and respect it. If it's good, if it's bad, then I can point where it's bad. And immediately I thought of your show and what you're able to do, because you talk the Catholic faith, but you also talk philosophy, and you love Tolkien. And it's like that hits the kind of trifecta right in the middle, where a lot of critics of the show are probably going to miss. They might see a lot of the bad parts of the show, the poor production quality, but they'll miss on the heart of it, which is Tolkien's Catholic faith. And I think that's why I brought it to you, and you said, let's talk about it. So, yeah.
So here's a couple things. Well, firstly, you taught for Retrograde Classical Academy, a Tolkien class for me last year. And that class is going to be re-available for folks within the week. We have to finalize some administrative thing where people can go and purchase that class, recordings of it on Retrograde Classical Academy. Go to timothyjgordon.com. We have like 14 other classes that are available. I think the cheapest they've ever been, or on par with the cheapest they've ever been, on timothyjgordon.com. Go to classes. It's Anthony here who he's dropping science, gave real knowledge, real power when it comes to the Lord of the Rings. And I think you're going through the first and the second age, which is what we're going to be talking about some, insofar as we have to discuss the context, the backdrop of Rings of Power. So go to Timothy J. Gordon and do that. Furthermore, we'd ask folks, become a Patreon patron, because for October, we're not just doing book clubs. We just finished Father Elijah. We're going to do some more book clubs throughout the course of the next 6 months. But additionally, we're going to do a watching club. And I feel like an amateur expert on what we're going to watch in the month of October. All patrons, even if you become a $5 member today, we're going to go through the deep Aristotelianism in the first season of Stranger Things. So become a patron today so that you have all that available to you at your fingertips. Go to timothyjgordon.com, Patreon, whatever it is, Timothy J. Gordon's Patreon page. And of course, like this video, subscribe, click the notification bell. We're going to get into some of the nitty gritty of the first 3 episodes, but from an overview. Let me just say this to start. Starting more generic and becoming more specific, Anthony. I only made it through the first episode, and it took me 3 viewings to get through this 60-minute episode. That's how much I thought it sucked.
Yeah.
It didn't pass the eye test for me. I thought the lighting was all weird. The lighting reminded me of Bakersfield, like where it's like too bright and it feels like you have a headache even when you don't. I don't know if anybody else felt that way. The elves were ugly. They were like ugly. Elves are supposed to be beautiful. The elves literally, Elrond is just a goofy looking dude. Elrond is not supposed to be a goofy looking dude. It was a little weird when we saw the Peter Jackson films, which were beautifully done, which first came out, and it was, Mr. Smith or whatever, Agent Smith from The Matrix, but at least he's a handsome cat.
Yeah.
The elves ain't supposed to be old looking. All of them are old looking. And furthermore, I'm not going out on any great limbs here. but it's the left that is bringing us the woke identitarian politics. We're not trying to insist on any of it, but there are three fundamental groups of elves: the Vanyar, the Noldor, and the Teleri, and they are all described time and time and time and time and time and time again in Tolkien canon as fair-skinned. And also these are Brits, so this restricts them to one racial group, and they're tweaking with that all over the place in Rings of Power. So for me, it just doesn't pass the eye test. You have all kinds of identitarian racial politics happening, but even when you're talking about they didn't make Elrond black. They kept him white, but he's a goofy looking guy. And the other thing is they have like Justin Bieber undercuts. They didn't have the good, amazing, beautiful wigs. All these cats are supposed to have great Vidal Sassoon long locks. They didn't have any of it. It made it hard to get beyond the first 15 minutes, which is where we turned it off for the first week. How did you square all this with just being a Tolkien lover like me, but an even more knowledgeable Tolkien lover, with your sensibilities the first time you watched this thing?
Well, I didn't square it. That's the thing. Like I went in with the expectations that they would get just about every single nitty gritty detail that's in the lore backwards. What I thought was that, okay, they're going to take all the things that they can change, sort of the accidental qualities of Tolkien, like the skin color, or like even the age or the marital status of Galadriel, all these like very minor things that are, in the details of the story. I thought, okay, they can change all these things, but can they change the fundamental plot and the themes of the story and make it woke and make it modern, right? To sort of hollow out what Tolkien had written it to be with that really Christian heart. Are they going to do that? That's why I continue to watch, because I didn't think they could, but after watching the third episode, I have a pretty good bet that they're going to, and I think I know how they're going to do it too. And that's really why I'm sticking with it. At least I'm just going to keep watching, because I've got the subscription. I already have Amazon Prime for free shipping, or probably should get rid of it soon enough. But that's why I'm sticking with it.
You're
I'm not
sticking with it on the basis of a sort of perverse bet with yourself.
I'm not even betting it for it to win. I'm simply doing it so that I can be able to critique what maybe other people might come at me is. They'll, if other people come at me that say they're a Tolkien fan, they love the show, I want to be able to actually like come at it with robust critiques, because I know people will say, well, they changed this in the Lord of the Rings. There's no plenty. I mean, Peter Jackson got a lot of things that he did on his own that were, neither here nor there. They weren't perfect in the lore, but where can I critique the Rings of Power where the Lord of the Rings did not fail? The Lord of the Rings did not fail in the themes. You go watch that movie. Is dang near as close as you can get to the book's themes. I mean, right. I know that Tolkien's own son had critiques, but he still can't say that the ending of the film, the ending of the all three films, didn't have the same, I guess you could say, the sadness, like the anxious sadness that you see with Frodo as he comes back to the Shire. That's still there. It's in the book, it's in the movie, and the theme was still present.
The question is, let's just do this, okay?
Let's do it
brief, because I want you folks, Retrogrades Parish Orphans. Anthony is so knowledgeable that I really do just want to let him present this theory. He made mention of this sort of feminist theory of what Amazon's doing. He's seen all three episodes. They drop on Fridays. He's gonna do that, and I'm gonna stand out of the way. I have a lot of trust in this man, particularly on Tolkien in general, but particularly on Tolkien. So I'm going to stand out of the way. But first, like I said, I want to open more generally. And Anthony, you're talking about the Lord of the Rings movies. So what I see is a trajectory that starts close to, people are going to freak out. Lord of the Rings people are. Those movies by Peter Jackson around the millennium, they are as close to cinematically perfect as you can be. And I'm talking about the extended versions of the films.
Completely.
As you could do 12 hours of films. They average about 4 hours per film if you do the extended versions.
Yeah.
As you can make the full original trilogy of the Lord of the Rings. And I know I know Tolkien's son critiqued it. I know the OneRing.net had some critiques. I know some of the experts Tolkienists didn't like it. Nerd of the Rings, I don't know what he said back then. We're going to talk some about the Nerd of the Rings website today that we like to go to. But so it's a trajectory, right? I say you start out with those films, you got to give a 9.5 to. I know you wanted to see the Barrow Whites and the not just you, but you want to see the Barrow Whites, you want to see Tom Bombadil, you want to see, it's not Arwen that did as much as Peter Jackson made her do. I get all that, and I'm like the anti-feminist guy, but still the substitutions that Peter Jackson made a lot of sense. So it's like a 9.5 or better. Yeah, I give it like a 9.9. I think those three films are beautiful. And yes, they're not perfect expressions of Tolkienism, but you can't do perfect expressions of Tolkienism in 12 hours. So I say it's a correct for inflation or whatever, great on a curve. It's a 9.99. Then you get to the Hobbit films. And the Hobbit films are what I was hoping, but not reasonably. I knew that the Rings of Power would probably suck as it's turning out to, but I was hoping against hope, Bishop Barron style, that the Rings of Power would be at the level of decent entertainment, very mediocre Tolkien phantasmagoria, Tolkien mythology, with some more wokeness in it than the Jackson films, just because society's crumbling or whatever. Hollywood's an expression of that. It's going further and further. But I enjoyed the three Hobbit films. We just rewatched them for probably the 25th time. We've seen the original Peter Jackson films probably 100 times. I don't know, maybe 80. But we just rewatched the Hobbit ones, and it's like definitely a degradation in quality, but they're entertaining still. And Martin Freeman does a good job, and lots of the casting is still good. And you don't get nearly as much woke intersectionality. You don't get as much identitarian politics, though there's more of it. This is where I was hoping. I mean, the Hobbit films are where I was hoping this could be, but I knew that wasn't reasonable. This is a definite degradation. It doesn't even pass the eye test. I only got through one episode, and I'm genuinely bored. Do you see the same degradation?
Well, the degradation is in degree and quality. There's so many different things that they're changing in the Rings of Power that the Hobbit films didn't change. The Hobbit films, you still had the same feeling Bilbo that's in the books. You read the book and you watch the movie, you still, the actor did a great job of executing what I think Tolkien wrote Bilbo to be. I think they executed how Gandalf is. They executed how even the dwarves are. The dwarves feel perfect in the Hobbit. They're great, and that you get that kind of feeling that they're very Hebrew-like, which is what Tolkien wrote them to be. The dwarves are meant to represent the Israel. But the Rings of Power,
they're going to be calling you an anti-Semite soon because they're delving for gems and all.
I'm gonna get called all those things. But the reality of the Rings of Power is that I went into it hoping that it would be somewhat like The Hobbit, where you would have some of those accidental qualities changed. You might have Galadriel being called things that she's not called, or characters doing things they're not supposed to be doing in the lore. But I think they're actually going to change some of the motivations from some of the characters that you and I know and love. Ancestors of Aragorn, who Aragorn mentions in the Lord of the Rings, who you and I, there's great lines in Lord of the Rings that I think almost every Tolkien fan knows, where Aragorn says, the blood of Numenor is all but spent. Yep. That is, he's referencing his ancestors who did great things in Numenor, but fell on their journey in Middle Earth. And we know Isildur, his ancestor, couldn't give up the ring and all these things. I think they're going to change even those things, those fundamental motivations. And they might look some of the same. Yes, some of the actions they make might be the same. They might end up in the same place, but the underlying motivation will be different. It's like if you go to the Hobbit and you change Bilbo's motivation from why he has the ring or how he uses the ring in the story, from he's doing it to try to be heroic, which is what the book is about. He's trying to be a heroic guy. He's trying to grow into his own. If you change that motivation to now Bilbo's keeping the ring because I don't know, he's got some beef with the patriarchy, then it completely changes like who Bilbo is, and that's what I think that they're going to do in the Rings of Power.
Yeah, Galadriel already has the sneer.
Oh, completely.
The sneer of someone that the first time that chick came up on screen, I was like, she's got the sneer. She's got an issue with the patriarchy. She's a malcontent. Not one of the many elves. This is not Galadriel. That's not. I'm not saying that that the actress that plays Galadriel in the original trilogy by Peter Jackson is not necessarily woke on the side. Kate
Blanchett. Yeah, a lot of the actors.
She's amazing though. She's amazing. That's what I'm saying. Yeah,
the actors in the first Lord of the Rings and even in the Hobbit, they didn't introduce their politic into their character. And I think this is what you had Shamecog, Seamus Coughlin on last week. And he made a good point about woke comedy or woke art, that they push their agenda before they think about what they're creating. And I think that the Rings of Power is in that same kind of vein, but in the myth making genre. They're not telling jokes, but they clearly are trying to put their agenda. I mean, it's a joke, but
yeah, their agenda is a joke enough. By the way, you're the only other guy I know that is such a Tolkien fan that you celebrate Hobbit Day on September the 22nd, which is coming up. I was thinking of pushing this show to September the 22nd and asking if you could do that day. Yeah. There's an exigency that has to do with the expiry date of your theory. And I want you to unpack your theory for us in a second. Your theory. So this is, I'll just say a word on theories that are live. And what Anthony's going to do for us is he's going to unpack this feminist theory about the Rings of Power. Now, after 3 episodes, I've only seen one of them because I think it's garbage, but you're going to do it now because it's valid to unpack a theory. You say, look, I don't know that this is where they're going, but you as a good reader, we've read books together, watched shows together. You're a very good live active reader and you're reading the signs of the times. What Anthony's going to do for the parish orphans out there is present a theory based on the first 3 shows, based on some of the signs of the times, and say, this is probably judging thematically where they're going at the level of the arc of the plot. And you know, you might not be as specific as people that want spoilers want him to be, and he might be wrong. But the point is, if I'd waited till September the 22nd, which is Hobbit Day, it's called Hobbit Day for 4 events: Bilbo's birthday, Frodo's birthday, Bilbo setting out for Rivendell, Frodo setting out for Rivendell in a different year, and it's also the first day of fall.
Yep.
We love it around my house. I love the first
celebrate it
because of Hobbit. And you celebrate it. We celebrate it. We get a cake for the kids. They love it. I suggest everyone out there, parish orphans, retrograde, celebrate Hobbit Day. But we can't wait for 9 more days because then that will be 2 more shows aired and your theory might no longer be live. So we're doing it now. We're doing it live.
Do it live.
Do it live. So hit us with the 30,000 foot arc and then get a little more specific.
Anthony. Yeah. So the Rings of Power, the show, is taking place in Tolkien's Second Age. And the Second Age of Tolkien, for those that don't know, it spans the time period when the Rings of Power are created, which for those, if you've seen Lord of the Rings of Power are the things that, Sauron helped create that corrupted the realms of men, the dwarves, the elves. And in this Second Age, there is an Atlantis type civilization. And this civilization is super important for the lore because, like I just mentioned earlier, Aragorn, the character we all know and love in The Return of the King and Two Towers, etc., he is a descendant, you might even say the culmination of all that was good in this Atlantis type civilization. And that civilization is called Numenor. The Numenorian blood, as Aragorn references in the movies and the books. And so that civilization is key for Tolkien. He created that civilization to sort of tell a secondary fall narrative. So if we're talking Tolkien, he created his books to teach a lot of the Christian message. And the Second Age, he creates that Atlantis civilization to teach about the dangers of pride. So we know that Adam and Eve fell due to pride, that they brought death into the world because they desired to be like God, to desire to eat the apple. Well, in Numenor, the same thing takes place, but in a different way. They see the immortality of the elves. They see the livelihood of the elves, and they desire to grasp at it. And so they get on some ships, they try to go to the Undying Lands, and before they get there, their world ends. The island goes down. Now, putting that in context, giving that like second age context to the island of Numenor is important because the show picks up right in the middle, right before this all takes place. So you didn't get to episode 2 or 3, but that's what they reveal, is that Galadriel and the main characters, they go to this island. And now for Tolkien fans, like, that's what I told Tim. I said, I think the 3rd episode was the best episode they've made so far, just because I got to see things that I've wanted to see for a long time, like a well-crafted island nation of Numenor. Yeah. And the great thing about this is that they kept it all intact. The men on this island live long years because they've been gifted by what effectively amounts to the archangels. They've been gifted long life. They've been gifted sort of prosperity and peace on this wonderful island. But where the show is going is they're going to take a character we actually know his name. He's in the first like 5 minutes of the Fellowship of the Ring. They're going to take him and they're going to infuse a feminist sympathy that will then turn him from the great lord and master of Middle Earth that he is, and turn him into sort of a feminist sympathizer who then gets rebranded. So, you know, if this show is written for lefty types and woke sympathies, then how do you take one of the greatest patriarchs, one of the greatest leaders of the realm of men in Middle Earth, how do you take him and make him digestible and acceptable to an audience that already hates the patriarchy? That's the question.
Gilgalad? Are you talking Gilgalad?
This is Elendil.
Oh, Elendil. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
I mean, you've got the sword, right? You've got Anduril there at home, right? You know it.
I do. I'll have Steph bring it in. Yeah.
Well, yeah. So Elendil is the guy who carries the original sword. And remember, in the beginning of the Fellowship of the Ring, he gets knocked off his sword or whatever. He gets knocked back against the wall, and he tries. You know, his son Isildur takes the sword and tries to he tries to take out Sauron, gets the ring, and that's the end of it. And so Elendil, Isildur, this kind of family line, this family tree, it represents all that is faithful in Numenor, all that is good. In fact, it's so good that Aragorn, we get Aragorn, 2,500 years later, who represents like the best fruits of the patriarchy. He's humble, but he's strong. He's proud of who he is, but he's also not too proud. He's not prideful in that his identity. All these things. I think they're going to undercut Aragorn. They're going to undercut these Numenorian men from the get-go. So that's kind of the 30,000 feet. If you want me to just keep going, we can. But if you wanted to interject with questions, that's fine too.
I'll say this, and I'd like you to keep going a little more.
I will. Yeah.
I think I should show Narsil because it's just amazing. So I've showed it to you before, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. It's
like
legit.
It's copy.
Yeah, it's the full.
I'll get that in a second. But this is a reasonable, plausible theory that you formed, and we were texting about it, and you're going to get into some of the nitty gritty. But it's already evident by like we said, it's not just the sneers of Galadriel. Galadriel is a great character. Galadriel is a humble character. Would you grab Narsil? Grab Narsil. Let's show that. Yeah, it's right there. Galadriel is. We see her humble at the mirror of I forget.
Galadriel. Mirror of Galadriel.
Yeah, it's a mirror of Galadriel. Is that what it is? I thought it was Meduseld or something, but
no,
that's wrong. She's humble. Now she's one of the ring bearers.
Come at you menacingly with this.
Dang, look at that. Yeah.
Yeah, like look at that shit, dude.
Yeah.
And it's got this is as real as it gets.
You should have talked to Peter Jackson. He should have cast you, man.
You should have, man. Yeah, there you go. I mean, this thing is. Remember the first time Aragorn pulls it out after it's been remade, and it's like the screen's panning up, and it just keeps going up.
It's massive.
It's like in Naked Gun 3 when he's like, she was all leg, and then it goes and it's like the lady that's like 10 feet tall.
And all the nerds are like wigging out, man. They're just
right. People didn't know I was such a Tolkien nerd.
Yeah. Movie prop.
Yeah,
that's cool.
It's giant. It weighs
Well,
like 30 pounds.
It's hard to hold with one hand.
Yeah.
Well, and to make it even more kind of to take that sword and bring it back to my theory in the third episode, Elendil is tasked by his queen regent. So that's kind of a big part of the third episode, that the queen is actually in charge of the island of men who are great men. She bestows upon him a sword. And a lot of people are theorizing that this sword is the one you hold there, or that's the reforged one. And so even in that little detail, you know, where this sword is supposedly a part of his house that he then uses to defeat Sauron, that little detail already is being potentially hijacked, that he didn't get the sword from his father. He didn't, you know, earn it through, like, you know, being a great leader. He got it because the queen decided to give it to him.
Wow.
And that's it. And the queen regent. And so that, again, like, that's just a bit of a breadcrumb on my theory trail. And like I said, it is a theory. So you made it a good point that it's good to get it out there, because I could be wrong. And I would, if Amazon proves me wrong and they're going to make it like great, that Elendil is a wonderful leader, and they make him strong and mighty on his own regard, or, you know, because of his faith or whatever, that's amazing. But they're probably not. They're not. That's not where they're going. Yeah.
All I've seen that's Galadriel not being true Tolkien Galadriel, being a little annoying know-it-all so-and-so, is her as a know-it-all claiming to be the only person that knows that Sauron, who is the you know, the bad guy in the Third Age of the world, the Lord of the Rings, people that know a little know, he in the First and Second Age, he is the servant of Morgoth.
Mm-hmm.
She claims to know what all of the other wise folks don't know, which is that he is not yet fully nullified. Yeah. And she just keeps insisting on it. That's not Galadriel's character, but yet you take us where you want to take us, man.
No, for sure. So in the nitty gritty of episode 3, it hit something that I immediately caught. When they arrive on Numenor, Galadriel is there. She's the one who comes, and she's kind of acting, and this is a family-friendly show, but she's acting like a female dog. She's not friendly. She's not enjoyable to be around. And she immediately starts demanding things that she can't demand. She's not in charge of this island. But they bring her before the queen regent. And so you immediately meet a real person in the lore who is one of the queens that Tolkien wrote into the lore. But they've now written her as though she's like this commanding, domineering leader who then goes toe-to-toe with Galadriel. And so it immediately becomes like, excuse my language, kind of a pissing contest where they're all getting angry at each other. And it's kind of funny. There's actually a dude in the scene, and he brings it down. He kind of interrupts the two women and is like, let's bring this conversation down to a little bit more peaceful minds. Now, that character, that female character that Galadriel engaged with, her name is Queen Muriel. I think she is going to be the character who is going to feminize, going to bring in the feminism into Elendil's character. How is she going to do that? Well, in the lore, she is the last real blood relative of the Numenorian kings. She's the last one. Her foreseeable husband, who's actually in the same scene, his name's Our Pharazôn. Pharazôn is his name. He will force her to marry him. So there you go. You got the patriarchy, right? Overthrowing a woman. So the leftists are hearing that, and they're going to see this in the next few episodes. Pharazôn is going to take the throne of Numenor by force. And you and I both think that that's wrong, because even if she is like royal blood, she shouldn't have her hand stolen in marriage by a guy who's just going to force his way upon her. It's not okay. But they're going to take that bad thing that happens to her, and they're going to then bring that sympathy card and bring it to Elendil, the guy who is will be the leader of the patriarchy, Aragorn's bloodline, who defeats Sauron, is able to like set up a legitimate kingdom in Gondor. And they're going to hand him that feminism card, and he's going to pick it up, and he's going to take it across the sea, and the rest will be history. Gondor will no longer be a great kingdom that loved a house and home, defending its hearth, defending its bloodline and its family members. It will be a feminist paradise.
That's how are they going to spin this yarn? I mean, are they going to?
It's not too difficult. How are they going to spin it? In the lore, Elendil is not blood. He's not blood of the king. He's not supposed to be the king, but his distant ancestor, one of the only women of Numenor to ever be denied the throne, is his ancestor. Now, she was denied the throne. Her name is Silmarion. She was denied the throne because her brother got the throne. Now, why did her brother get the throne? Because we're talking about a patriarch. We're talking about a kingdom. A kingdom passes on to the next son who deserves the kingdom.
Hells yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so in the lore, I'm looking at it right here. It's in Appendix A. In the lore, we don't see Silmarion go kicking and screaming, fighting like that her brother became king. She just goes and establishes a faithful family in the western part of Numenor, has wonderful family and children, and the rest is history because her family becomes the only group of Numenorians. They're called the faithful ones. Tolkien names them the faithful ones. So Tolkien actually thinks that like it's a good thing that she went and had this family, right?
Right.
But they're going to take her. They're going to say, Elendil, don't you feel bad for the queen? She just had her throne taken from her. And he'll say, oh yeah, I do. You know what? My distant ancestor, Silmarion, she also had the throne stolen from her. I guess I'm a feminist. And I mean, I'm simplifying, but that's basic. I think that's where they're going to go. And I'm all but positive because I know the motivation of the left, and that they can't have a legitimate patriarchy built on the downfall or the quote downfall of a woman that she wasn't able to lead. And therefore Elendil will sympathize with Queen Muriel. Yeah.
Yeah. So not even the downfall, just the subjugation and subjection of a woman who knows their place. I mean, even Galadriel is being cast as like the greatest warrior in the Second Age, and she's not a warrior. So there's plenty of circumstantial evidence for what you're saying.
And you know what they also took away from Galadriel? Her husband and son.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. She's not locked down by husbandry.
Sure, I think it's either son or daughter, but she has a child at this point in the lore. So they're really playing hard and fast, or loose with fast and loose with the details. But again, those details, you know, like so did Peter Jackson. He played fast and loose with them. But where's the Rings of Power really going to screw it up? Where are they going to go far worse than the Hobbit did? Is they're actually going to reinstantiate Elendil's motivation. He's not going to be a good king as a patriarch of his household, a faithful son like Tolkien wrote him to be. He's going to be a feminist. and last detail, because I don't want to get too much farther into the weeds. Last detail about it is that they even wrote in a brand new character. He has a daughter, which he doesn't have anywhere in the lore. And that daughter is seemingly the pearl of his eye. She's the only one that gets into architecture school, and her, Isildur and the other boys, they don't know what they're doing, but he loves his daughter. It's like, they're going to feminize it. They are. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. That's
Galadriel's husband is called Celeborn, right?
Celeborn. Did I say Celebrimbor? My bad.
No. You didn't say his name, but Celebrimbor is the great maker of things.
The rings. Yeah. He makes the rings. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Celebrimbor is the ring maker. He makes the 3, the 5, and then the 9, or does he just make the 3?
Oh, he makes all of them. They make all of them together with Sauron, and then Sauron forges his own in secret or whatever.
Yeah, but not the one. So he makes all
but one.
All but one. Okay. Mm-hmm. So
yeah.
Okay. No, you didn't say no. I was just making sure that I wasn't getting Celeborn and Celebrimbor mixed up. You got that classical Latin pronunciation of the C, the same.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, that's the theory kind of in a nutshell. For those of you who are like, that was too much, I would recommend reading Appendix A. Appendix A goes through this family line, and it's in brief. Like, Tolkien did not give long explanation of this. But what we do see, I guess, as a way to sort of like maybe theorize as to what Tolkien was doing here in the story, what we do see in his actual lore is that the family line that comes from this woman, Silmarion, who steps away from the throne, does not take up the leadership of the House of Numenor. Her family becomes the faithful family, the only family that survives the downfall of Numenor, who becomes Aragorn's ancestors and Gondor and all the wonderful things.
I didn't know that. Okay.
Right. And Tim, you wrote it in your book. I think it was in Catholic Republic, that great line in the Return of the King, where it talks about what Gondor failed to do. Yeah. Right? Gondor was obsessed with the stars and the numbering the tombs of their forefathers, but they forgot the glory of the home. And I think that if
I'll
we're
read
reading
that line in one second.
Yeah, definitely. Because I mean, that I have it right too. But the point is that tells us so much about what Tolkien expects the Gondorian family, Elendil's family to be, a family that loves the home and the hearth, that's what they're out to defend, rather than a sort of political grabbing, patriarchy smashing Elendil that I think that they're going to write. And that's, I mean, if you go read Appendix A, the downfall of Numenor comes through this sort of power grabbing of the leadership, that there becomes a first queen out of like necessity, like there's no blood, descendancy, so they have a queen. But this queen that we see at the end, she's going to, in the story of the Rings of Power, in the fake story, they're going to make Elendil sympathetic to feminist Queen Mariel.
I like how having a queen is always associated with like, this is worst case scenario. Like, guys, it's gonna, this body politic is gonna get moody some of the time. Yeah, so it's Pippin. I have this on the second page of Catholic Republic. Pippin asks Gandalf.
We have one of our daughters named after.
We have one of our kids is named after this young man, this young hobbit man. Why are they still guarding the Tree of the King? And Gandalf says they guard it because they have hope, a faint and fading hope that one day it will flower, a king will come, and the city will be as it once was before it fell into decay. The old wisdom born out of the West was forsaken. Talking about the Atlanticist Numenor, right? Kings made tombs more splendid than the houses of the living and counted the old names of their descent dearer than the names of their sons. Childless lords sat in aged halls, musing on heraldry, or in high cold towers asking questions of the stars. And so the people of Gondor fell into ruin. The line of kings failed. The white tree withered. The rule of Gondor was given over to lesser men. Gosh, that sounds like every failing republic, like our now failed republic, but that's beautiful. Yeah, thanks for making that connection.
Yeah, completely. And one last thing I think I could say about this woman, because I think that the greatest corruption will be actually not in Elendil's motivation, but in how they portray Samarian. You could say his foremother. It's his foremother who's the reason why his family became faithful and, absconded the royal line and became good men and women who just sought a good life that God intended for them. Her name means, in Quenya, silver shining white crystals. It actually means like kind of a garland, a crown of crystals of shining silver. And to me, like Tolkien, he has many names for many things, and there's lots of different ways to read poetry into it, but he's got a lot of characters that echo Mary. And I can't help but feel like this person's name, just with the crown of white, the crown of silver, reminds me of kind of a Marian character. And so I really will be sad if my theory is correct. I will be sad because I think they will corrupt her character. And she's not even that big of a character. Like, I'm not, she's only in a little bit, but Tolkien puts so much effort into trying to write a good Christian story at every edge, like from the heart of it to the details, that taking even a small character like this and corrupting it, it'll be so sad. And that's the thing, is it's hollowing out. It's the hollowing out that we see of all this media, of every single story that we've seen in the past 10, 15 years in film and art. If it's got any semblance of a good Christian ethic, a good, the old stories of men and women and good and evil, they will hollow it out. And
feminism is the ultimate hollow out. Remember, it lies like a canker at the heart of the original sin. I mean, think about that for half a moment. Feminism is at the heart of the original sin. Eve is the one who was tricked by the serpent, and the act of feminism was her husband allowing her to interface with the serpent. John Chrysostom says that Adam wouldn't have fallen, mankind wouldn't have fallen. We don't have to pay one death. We never would have had to have a headache or a sprained ankle if Adam would have just done his damn job. And so feminism is really, really close to the bone.
Yeah.
We're talking about hollow out.
Completely.
No pun intended. It's feminism hollows everything out. It destroys, it queers, it corrupts everything it touches. It leads to other disgusting, vile perversions of the natural sin, of the natural order, such as homosexuality and LGBT. And it's the opposite of Midas, right? It turns everything it touches, even great literature, even Tolkien's amazing, sublime, quite detailed mythology, into something I don't even want to spend time watching. Would you tell us this, Anthony? Are they collapsing like 1,000 years of the Second Age into one story arc?
At this point in the history, because they're writing about the end of Numenor. They're writing about the downfall of this Atlantis civilization. It will fall into the ocean and the gods will destroy it. The Valar will destroy it. That happens at the end of the Second Age. And the Rings of Power were created near the beginning. So they're kind of mishmashing it all together, and it's all going to be just kind of a mess of a story, but they will do it. If you don't mind, one detail, I want to go back to that hollow out point, because you reminded me of something, because you just read the passage where it talks about the white tree and it's dead, right? Well, that white tree is a descendant of a tree that was on Numenor. I don't know if you know that.
I did.
Yeah. What's really powerful about this, the symbol and the imagery of it, if you think about it, the next time that tree flowers is when Arwen Undomio, the greatest like elf to ever have lived in Middle Earth, she weds her husband there, and effectively Numenor is set right. He takes the throne, his wife comes to be with him, and they establish this great kingdom built on the love and the sacrifice that she makes, and the love and sacrifice that he makes for her, in both in tandem. It's a beautiful like culmination. And then the tree blooms, and then that tree that's been dead for so long finally, they find a sapling in the lore, but it blooms. The tree comes back to life. Yeah, it kind of like, I think, hammers home, that Tolkien, that we're not doing what we would accuse the leftists of doing to Tolkien. We're not reading into it our own necessary like bias and perspective. Tolkien already had this perspective. And if you want any evidence of that, go read letter 43 of his letters. I got it right here. In this letter, he talks about the nature of men and women. And it's one of the most powerful letters, because he talks nothing about myth. He talks nothing about his stories. All he does is he tells his son what men should be like to women and what women should be like to men. And it's one of the most glorious letters that's overlooked, because none of the leftists who love Tolkien, who take him for themselves, none of them know who he actually was. They don't read his letters. They don't know what's going on in his heart. But I think we do. because we're Catholic, and we've got that ethic, that, and we're also men. But
like all the great ones, he's a great patriarch.
Exactly.
And he admonishes the patriarchy, and the left might not acknowledge the full extent of Tolkien's patriarchalism, but they know enough to start, queering his mythology. Did you want to read some of the passages from letter 43, Anthony?
No,
you don't have.
No, I couldn't find one that like really was punchy, but I do have it pulled up here, and I can send you the link if you guys would like it. But he talks about the physicality of men, and the kind of how men need a woman to bring their physical nature into the spiritual, that men really have this difficulty if they're mired in sin, which is most of us, right? That we need sort of the actual humility of a woman to share in that beauty of physicality, to bring it into spirituality. And he's really speaking to original sin, but also our redemption, to bring us back from original sin. How true marriage and the love that marriage is for, we know what that is, right? That it will bring men from a sort of like mired in sin state to a higher state. And he writes that in all of his stories. Like all the best characters in Lord of the Rings have a female counterpart who they are living for and dying for. Even Sam, right? Why does Sam want to get back? Why does Frodo write that wonderful letter at the end of the Return of the King? He says to Sam, like, you have so much to live for. What is he living for? His wife and his kids.
Dancing. Yeah.
And Eleanor Rosie, who's sitting on his lap reading the stories about Bilbo and Frodo and Gandalf. Yeah, it's good. So.
Yeah, you named your daughter partly after Eleanor, right? Sam's daughter.
Eleanor. Her name is Eleanor Rose.
Her name is Eleanor Rose. we have a Pippin here.
Yeah.
One thing that was, I think, disappointing to you and me both is the level of pimpiness of this YouTuber who is vastly knowledgeable and who makes sublime history of Middle Earth videos called appropriately Nerd of the Rings. He seems to be shilling for, judging by my opinion alone,
right?
It seems to be shilling for Amazon, and they've already thrown $1 billion at this crappy franchise. If you've gotten a package from Amazon lately, all of them are decked out in the Rings of Power thing. So they are deep into debt for this thing, and they seem to be, I'm opining, having the Nerd of the Rings guy who is like second to none in terms of his public expressions of Tolkienisms and deep Tolkien mythology. He's like the only public guy out there that I can recall that I ever look at that's endorsing the Rings of Power. Can you say a word on what do you think is going on there?
I mean, I haven't actually been keeping too much up on the Nerd of the Rings guy, but from my knowledge, he was, after the first attempt at Amazon trying to they tried to brand their own work as legitimate Tolkien stuff. They tried to say, like, this is legit. And after there was a big backlash from the fans, it didn't matter if they're Catholic, just legitimate fans of the lore. They said, this is not Tolkien. They then paid some of the influencers online, these like Nerd of the Rings guys and a few others, people from the OneRing.net and whatnot. They flew them out to get an advanced showing and sort of an interview with, I think, the cast and crew. I forget who was involved, but they, and from that, a lot of them came back and had high regards for it. Now, the problem I have with that is, from all of the reports, the Tolkien scholar par excellence that everybody goes to for any lore, Tom Shippey, was brought onto the show at the beginning, and he was brought on with the Lord of the Rings, and he was also brought on with the Hobbit, and he backed out. Well, from what the reports say, they parted ways, but it sounds as though Tom Shippey would have stayed on had they been closer to the lore, had they had a better story to tell. You know, personally, if I were to write a Tolkien story and I didn't want to mess up the lore, I would make up my own characters and have them like come encounter with, in contact with Galadriel and see them in a distance. But tell your own story, for goodness sakes. Like, if it's going to be fan fiction, if you're going to make it up, it's better to be done if you're going to screw up your own characters than you're going to screw up everybody else's. And I think that those guys like Nerd of the Rings, they're giving too much credence to the showrunners because they want a good show. I think everybody wants. We would love to see great Tolkien art because the books are amazing, but you can't circle a square. You can't do it. And I think that's what they're doing. I think that's what.
Turned on the reviews yet for the Rings of Power on Amazon?
They're getting owned.
I know. Last time I saw that it wasn't reviewable.
Yeah, funny you say that. I had a friend of mine who he said, I tried to give it a good review, or I think he said a 2 stars. I forget what it was. And he said they wouldn't even give me that. So I downgraded it to a 1 just because they wouldn't let me give them a review. It's like,
when it was still up for review, he was trying to enter in a 2.
Yeah,
and it wouldn't accept it.
Wouldn't accept it. I
think
it was
only accept a 5,
3 or something or higher. Yeah.
Full on corrupt. Yeah.
True. I mean, true works can be, measured on their merit. Like, if they're good, people will love them and they will last. Like, and we'll only see that in time. Like, the reality is, you and I can watch Lord of the Rings for the 110th time, 111th time in 4K or whatever, in the highest quality we can, and we'll still love it, and we'll still see things new that we didn't see the first time. But if this show tanks, no one's going to watch it past the first 2 times. First time.
And that's $1 billion. Did you hear $1 billion? I keep hearing $1 billion sunk in this thing. Mm-hmm. And it sucks. I mean, and it was getting pwned in the comments, people. It was getting destroyed. And let me just say this. After what Disney did, Disney reamed Star Wars. That's a lesser mythology. Yeah. It's not semi-sacred, semi-precious as Lord of the Rings mythology is, in my view, and in the view of many esteemed colleagues like like you, Anthony. I mean, but the Star Wars is semi precious, you know, growing up with it. And I'm a big endorser of the prequels.
Yeah.
But what Disney did, which is no less than defile with excrement what was remaining of the Star Wars story arc, which was supposed to be numbers 7, 8, and 9. According to like folks like Kathleen Kennedy, who didn't know much about Star Wars and just said, this is our chance. This is a tabula rasa over which we will scrawl the giant FU type letterhead of feminism. After they did that, I remember seeing episode 7 of Star Wars, not knowing quite yet that they had done it until I saw it, and then hating it. Well, Star Wars episode 7 is the worst movie I've ever seen. It so sucks. Bad. But this is why I bring it up, because when Rings of Power came out, I was pleasantly surprised by the Tolkien people out there, by the Tolkien crew that pwned in the commentary and on the internet this awful abomination. And I was happy, and I was contrasting that with my experience with episode 7, because once I went, I saw it at the theater. Me and Dave were talking. We were angry. We went with some people that liked it, and we were like, how can you like it? We were angry. We were physically upset. Steph, remember that? Yeah. We were getting into arguments. We're like
vomiting.
Vomiting in sheer terror about the outrage that we just beheld. And people were like, why are you getting mad at us? I was like, because this isn't something about which reasonable minds can differ. That's the worst movie I've ever seen. And they had a lot to play with, and they did it in the name of feminism. Yeah. And then, but the thing is, all the Gen X Star Wars nerds, the true and the faithful, they stuck by 7. Then 8 came out, and I did see 8, I think, once. I never saw 9, but they hated it. And I was like, where were you when 7 came out, man? You could have stopped 8 from being this bad. 8 wasn't worse than 7. They're all horror. It's all garbage. Yeah. But I'm glad the Tolkien people are with us, man.
I do think that there's quite a few like Tolkien fans who are sticking to their guns, like whatever name they're going to call you, racist or whatever, which is the one that they're really sticking to. What the people are sticking to it because they aren't going to let something like this just completely tarnish the name of Tolkien. They completely tarnish the name of this man, because we have the thing that we have different in Tolkien fans, Lord of the Rings fans, all that, is that we don't look to who made Star Wars. I don't even remember his name. George Lucas. We don't look to George Lucas as like, he's like a saint. So many Christians, so many Catholics who love Tolkien, they're like, this guy was a saint, and his book is literally bringing people to God, and they don't even know it yet. So, I mean, I guess there's that I got to hold on to, because I'm frustrated at how they treat the man. I'm frustrated. I think Peter Jackson was at least respectful, that he said, I'm not going to put in something that's not Tolkien. He said, I respect the man enough that I'm going to put into the work what he wanted in the work, the message, the meaning, the themes, all that, which is really the heart of the story. And you got to hope a little bit, I guess, maybe through this effort, maybe through this failure, that some of the people making the show will realize, like, maybe we go back to the source. Maybe we go back and read the letters. You go find out who the man was. I mean, his Catholic faith is the thing that formed his story more than anything else. And that's why, like, George Lucas, he likes Star Wars, but it's not Catholic faith. There's nothing in there that's like strictly going to lead you to the Catholic faith. But you read Tolkien, it's dang near impossible to finish that story and not have the slightest hint that maybe he's talking about God. Maybe he's leading you to, it's called the Return of the King, for goodness sakes. Like, who are we talking about, Christendom? Like, the King of Kings. That's who we're talking about.
Yeah, like Peter Kraft says, it's like the only modern tale that's got 3. Lord of the Rings has 3 protagonists, a priest figure, a prophet figure,
true,
and a king figure, and they're all Christ figures. And you can't say that any one of the 3 of them, I'm talking about Frodo, Gandalf, and Aragorn. You can't say that any one of them is more or less the primary protagonist than the others. And this is, we were talking about this the other day when I did the video with Steph on in defense of Matt Fradd when he said women can't hold down an entire comedy set. I mean, people find Steph funny all the time. I find her funny every day. She's right. Yeah, intentionally so. Yes. These female comedians, they're funny, but that's accidentally. Mm-hmm. And that's in ways directly contraposed to the ways they're trying to be funny. But that's really what we're talking about is a female is a helpmaid, a handmaiden. A female cannot hold down the job that leftists now, identitarian leftists who are woke intersectionalityists, are trying to make them do. It's unfair to women. Like Galadriel is not a protagonist. She is a helper. She's supposed to be, even in Tolkien, the real Tolkien, she's a somewhat powerful woman for a woman, but she's a helpmate.
Right. And there's actually, if I could, I know I'm interrupting, but there's something you're hitting on that I actually think is part of Tolkien's message. Galadriel is a fallen elf. She's not perfect. She's a great woman in The Lord of the Rings, but the reason why she has that test scene, you mentioned the Mirror of Galadriel. The reason why she says, like, you'll have a queen as powerful as the foundation of the earth, right? She says that is because she has pride. The reason why she has a kingdom of her own, Lothlorien, and her and Celeborn rule that, is because she has yearned for that since the first stage, since the beginning of her story. But she's been humbled multiple times in the story where now all she has is just this little kingdom, Lothlorien. And we see at the end of her story arc, what does she say? She doesn't say, I'm going to take the ring, Frodo, and I will be your queen. She said, I will diminish and remain Galadriel and go into the West. So she realizes, like, I can't, as much as I might want to be this glorious queen and a mighty lord of the world, I need to still be Galadriel. I need to be a wife, a mother, and go into the West. Be faithful.
Who's making Celeborn sandwiches, right? It's Galadriel. You got to go. He needs his sandwiches made. She's the Lady of the Light. She's got to be there. Bring the.
Those have got to be some amazing sandwiches.
Yeah, she's a lovely lady, as given to us by Peter Jackson and Kate
Blanchett.
Kate Blanchett. Mm-hmm. It's incredible, man. It's unbelievable what they're doing to something we love. And I'll tell you this, I didn't even have too high of hopes for it. I really knew 2022, we're this late in the game. I didn't have high hopes for it.
I think I probably had less than you, but I'm not holding out hope here. This isn't like Bedoya like putting a theory out and saying, I really hope Amazon, I think they're going to do it. But I'm sticking with it, at least for one viewing, for purely scientific purposes, so that there might be Catholics, there might be some traditional Catholics who will watch this and think that, oh, this is what Tolkien was about. I love this. And immediately they'll begin drinking the Kool-Aid. And I want to be able to bring him back. Like, you think this is Tolkien, here's where you're wrong. And I don't think that's too many traditional Catholics. There might be like a handful. But what I mean is, if there's anybody who's going to come at you or I or anybody say, oh, I love Lord of the Rings now. Rings of Power is great. Bring them back. Show them where they're wrong and gently show them that here's the right way. Lord of the Rings, let's go to that. Don't go to the Amazon stuff. Yeah.
Better you than I, my friend. I might try to struggle through episode 2 and 3, because there, like you said, there's more merit in critiquing it. To critique it, you have to watch it. To watch it, you have to make it all the way through. There's more merit in it with this semi-precious Lord of the Rings thing that you and I love so much than there is in watching the 9th Star Wars. I couldn't make myself do it.
I don't even remember the 8th. I think I saw it, but I don't remember it because that was a one-time deal. It was so bad that once you know you've critiqued it and it's easy to critique, you don't go back. Right. Yeah.
I mean, guys like you and me, we are fine film repeaters and fine literature repeaters. We're making our way through Fellowship of the Ring book right now with our kids. We were reading it last year. We're rereading Fellowship, and we're in the middle of we're always in the middle of one of the movies, right? We'll watch a half hour, 45 minutes with all the kids. Mm-hmm. They're kind of just on in the background. So, we got 2 dogs named after Lord of the Rings characters. We've got Brago and Barlaman Butterbur, our 2 dogs. We've got a kid named after it. I've got the sword. I'm pissed off about the Rings of Power, but I'm glad you're watching it. Maybe you'll have to give an update in another 3 shows and
potentially
see how close your theory is.
Well, and remember, the reason why you and I probably fell in love with the books is because of the movies, and that's a good thing. That's what Peter Jackson did right. You said it earlier that the Peter Jackson films are nowhere near perfect. They're 95%, but they're lightning in a bottle, man. When can you imagine Hollywood evangelizing people to go back to the source, to bring people back to the faith? But that's what Hollywood did by accident. Peter Jackson made one of the greatest, I think probably the greatest bit of cinema, and it brought tons of people back to the faith. I'm just one of them. And there's plenty of people that done it. And so lightning in a bottle, it happened once. I don't know if it's going to happen again, but you got to hold out hope, I guess. Hope against hope, right? Like Bishop Barron.
Yeah. Hope against reasonable. Yeah. You don't see, by the way, closing thought, parting shot from me. You don't see the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe about the lion who is Jesus doing that. Nothing beautiful about allegory.
No.
Overrated C.S. Lewis's friend J.R.R. Tolkien told him face to face at the Eagle and the Child. He told him,
that's right.
Bro, drop the allegory, man.
Yeah.
It's played out. It's no good.
Yeah.
And but Lord of the Rings is powerful stuff. It brings people to the one true faith.
It does.
God bless you, Anthony. Thanks, dude. That was good. I appreciate it.
No, thanks you, Tim.
Parish Orphans and Retrogrades. If you like a little bit of what you just tasted here, you will be able to get a Lord of the Rings class with Anthony in just a couple of days. It's pre-recorded and it's like $95 or something for the class on timothyjgordon.com, along with another 13 classes we offer that are pre-recorded. This is just one of the great products on timothyjgordon.com. Gosh, we do so much content. We're going in so many directions now that if you become a patron today, you're going to like what you see. We're going in the month of October through Stranger Things season 1. And that's one that I can handle. I can handle my own. Here, I look to my pal Anthony for Lord of the Rings critique. But Stranger Things, I'm really excited to do the watch through. So you got to be at least a $5 patron to be with us. Then go to Timothy J. Gordon at patreon.com. Anthony Bedoy, thank you so much, my friend. And I will see you soon.
It's good stuff. Thanks, Tim.
Parish Orphans and Retrogrades.